Hi, it's Sherry from A Quilting Life, and today I'm here to share with you one of my scrap fabric sorts. I've done a previous video where I showed you how I sort and how I store my scraps. I talked about having different bins and boxes for 2.5-inch strips, 5-inch squares, 2.5-inch squares, half square triangles, low volume fabrics. So if you want to go and watch that video and see exactly all of the different ways and sizes that I keep and store, that you can do that. But what I wanted to do today was just kind of do a live sort. I put all my scraps in a bin when I'm working on different projects, and when the bin is full or when I need to use the bin for something else, I just kind of do a sort. So I thought we'd do that today, just kind of live, just kind of walk you through it. I haven't peeked in this bin for a little while, so I'm not exactly sure what's in here, but I'll show you my entire process of going through here and getting these fabrics that have just been thrown in a scrap bin ready to be put in storage bins so that I can actually use them. Okay, so this container, first of all, is just one of those Ikea containers. A good friend gave it to me at a retreat, and it's great. When I get it empty, I'll show you why this is a great bin to take on a retreat, because it actually ends up folding flat. So I'll show you that in a minute. So these are all fabrics from our Summer Suite collection from when I was doing that sewing, and we're getting new fabric delivered this week, and I've got to get organized to make those new quilts, and so I'm going to need another scrap bin. So it's time to get these out, and these are just all super random, so I'll show you kind of what I do. And while I have this bin open, I'll show you. It actually zips over here and then it folds flat. So I've taken this on when I travel in suitcases, because I can just fold it flat and have it to use as my scrap bin while I'm sewing at a retreat. So just one of those nifty containers that you can get, and I think they come in several different colors too. Okay, so when I pull my fabrics out, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to separate the light fabrics and the low volume fabrics, and I'm just as I find those in here, I'm going to separate them because I store those separately. I store low volume and background prints separately from my colored prints. So I'm just going to quickly go through and some of these are just extra strips. Some of them I'm going to throw in the garbage, but for right now I'm just going to sort them and try to get all the low volumes over here separated from the group into a pile. And see here, I found in my bin I already had some 2.5-inch squares. I'm just going to keep those together. Okay, so I feel like I've got most of the low volume separated over here. I'm probably going to find a few more as I continue to go through, but my next step is to look for really big pieces that are maybe at least 5 inches wide or close to it. And so sometimes these are things that were left over from borders or just bigger pieces. So I'm going to start finding those larger pieces, and sometimes there aren't a lot, sometimes there are, and I'm going to put those in a separate pile. And it doesn't matter the color, I'm doing it by size. So, and then I'm actually right now, because I'm finding some middle size, I'm going to do a middle size pile as well. And then something like this, if I notice it looks like it's about 2.5 inches, and it is, I'm going to start a 2.5-inch strip pile. Any other squares that I find, I'm going to add to that square pile. And like I said, I'm probably going to find some more low volumes, and I'm just going to kind of put them in order of size. So, and I'm not measuring, I'm just getting it done. I feel like at this point, if you don't just get it done, then you'll never get it done if you take too much time. So it's really just kind of a free-for-all where I just kind of, large, medium, small, and if I notice a 2.5-inch strip, I'll put it over there. Okay, I finished my quick sort, is what I like to call that, and it really didn't take too long, and that is the hardest part of this whole process. So I've got piles. I've got my low volumes. This I put in a separate pile because I had put some interfacing on there, so I'm not quite sure what I'll do with that yet. These are my big pieces. These are all kind of the mediums. These are pieces that look like they're 2.5-inch strips, and these are smaller strips. And then these are just some 2.5-inch squares that I found, and then some smaller pieces. And then this pile is actually, I found some finished flying geese units and some strip piece sets. And so this is how I separate them to begin with. And then what I'll do is, and because this can be really overwhelming, but what I'll do is I'll take my large pile and just kind of separate it out. So these I'm going to cut into large strips. And these are probably left over from borders. Occasionally I'll find something that looks like, oh, hey, yeah, this is probably a fat eighth. And so I'll be able to cut this into a nice fat eighth and put it in my fat eighth bin. This one also, this is a pretty big piece of fabric. So a couple of them, these might work as fat eighths. The rest of these, I'm probably going to cut into strips unless nope, it's only 9 inches. If it were a 10-inch square, I probably would have saved it just as a square. But this I might, I don't know, cut into a charm square 5x5 and then into strips. So that's what I'm going to do with those. I usually go to the low volume next and see if there are any bigger pieces, and this time it doesn't look like I have any fat eighths or anything in here. So again, I'm just going to even these out and cut them into nice size strips and put them in my strip bin so that they're a little bit more evened and easier to use. And as I mentioned earlier also, these will all go separately in a low volume bin. Then probably the next thing I'm going to do, because it's the easiest, is I'm going to go through and verify that these are all 2.5 inches. And if they are, I'm not really going to do anything with them other than just add them to my 2.5-inch bin. And you'll also notice that I did add some of the low volumes to this pile that I could tell were 2.5-inch strips. So because I like to keep those separate from the bigger pieces of low volumes. Actually, this one goes in this small strip. So I'll do that. I'll measure those, make sure they're 2.5 inches. These I will probably just separate out. I have a bin for strips that are smaller than 2.5 inches, and I use those in string quilts and in some of the smaller log cabin and pineapple blocks. They use strips that are maybe 1 3/4 inches wide, so this will be a great pile for utilizing for those types of blocks. These are the pieces, honestly, I think these are 1.5-inch squares. You've got to just decide how small of a scrap do you want to keep. A lot of people keep these, and I threw them away for a lot of years, but I feel like it would be really fun to make a quilt with them. So I've started saving them and putting 1.5-inch squares in their own box. These 3 piles, which are kind of the medium piles, are the piles that are going to take the longest. And you've just really got to, and this will probably take me like an hour to go through, but what I'll do with these is I will pull them out and I'll either cut them into strips, or for 3.5-inch half square triangles, you know, you need a 4-inch strip. So I might just cut a whole bunch of these into squares so they're ready to go for half square triangles. And the same with some of these smaller pieces. If it's shaped like this, you know, it's just a decision. I could cut a strip out of it and add it to the 2.5-inch strip, and then I'd also have a big enough piece that I could cut it into squares. So this, like your medium-sized pile, is just kind of the pile that's going to take you the most time. But if you separate out 2.5-inch and strips and fat eighth pieces, and your larger pieces, then your work is mostly cut out for you. I hope this helped just a little bit going through the entire process. I know it can be super overwhelming when you dump out that scrap bin and you just think, oh, this is going to take me forever. How am I going to decide? But I feel like pulling it into separate categories at first just really narrows the workload. And then if you have some extra bins, place these in extra bins until you have a chance to work with them, and make it easier on yourself. Say, oh, I'm going to do the strips and the big pieces this afternoon, and then I'm going to sew. I have to motivate myself that way sometimes, just give myself a task to do that's going to take a certain amount of time, or I'm going to work on this for 30 minutes, or I'm going to work on it for an hour. And I feel like if you do that, you can make progress, and then you can really start using your scraps for the scrap quilts that you love. I hope that you'll subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and thanks so much for stopping by.